transhumanism as a key driver of this supposed fourth industrial revolution, you see a lot of these people in Silicon Valley favoring what is obviously a technocratic system, where there's a class of technocrats who get to decide everything and you just have to live with it, and they're just telling you it's for the greater good.
They're funding the deep state with impunity to harass, prosecute, and even murder activists, civil rights icons, and maybe even presidents. And sometimes they even get the public sector, Twitter, to give them an assist.
In a world shaped by transhumanism and technological progress, a hidden influence looms over governments. Many individuals who have operated behind the scenes with this emerging power report becoming disenchanted with the government's lack of transparency. Agents like Edward Snowden or John DeSouza are stepping forward to expose how the Mafia controls the government. But how true is that? First of all, let's introduce the term technocrats, as this phrase will recur frequently in this video. Technocrats are individuals who advocate for or support the idea that government and decision-making authority should be entrusted to experts, scientists, engineers, or professionals, as opposed to politicians or elected officials. The term technocracy originates from the Greek words techna, meaning skill or craft, and kratos, meaning power or rule. These people strongly favor technology and believe that significant societal problems can be resolved through technological means. In a technocratic system, decision-makers are chosen based on their qualifications and expertise in technical areas, such as economics, engineering, mathematics, or the environment. The aim is to establish a smart and efficient government that prioritizes logic and factual information for crafting policies and addressing challenges. This might seem like an ideal government system. However, one crucial element is missing: the voice of the people. It's important to note that while technocracy offers efficiency benefits, it lacks democratic representation and accountability.
Right, and they're able to get away with things decade over decade. They're not going to stop that behavior because of a lack of accountability. These particular groups that are affiliated with either organized crime or intelligence or, different power brokers, more often than not, the law doesn't apply to them like it applies to the rest of us. So they're able to sort of get away with certain crimes if they're in bed with the right actors, or if they're benefiting the power, the powerful enough.
Moving on to the next point. We need to emphasize the concept of a concealed authority exerting control over governments. These covert influences are commonly known as the Mafia, or the deep state. In an interview with Redacted, journalist and author Whitney Webb delves deeper into defining the terms deep state and technocratic system. She explores how the deep state utilizes and manipulates the technocratic system from the shadows, extending its influence to shape society under the guise of the greater good.
When you're talking about the deep state, you tend to be talking about military and intelligence agencies more often than not, which is also the same as the national security state. And when you use that term, it sort of brings, the contractors in with it.
Of course, it is important to keep in mind that none of these theories have been proven true. Nevertheless, there have been several witness accounts from former FBI agents, government officials, and investigative reports regarding a higher power or a permanent government. While it can be regarded as an opinion or a conspiracy theory, it is worth providing an explanation.
When you look at the contractors of the national security state, you're looking at groups like MITRE that are really shady, in the RAND Corporation, also very spooky. But also the Silicon Valley giants, right, are almost all major contractors to the national security state. So that's, Google, Microsoft, Oracle, Amazon, a lot of the big names of Silicon Valley are also tied up in this now.
The crucial term here is Silicon Valley. This term is linked to the deep state and the technocratic system. What's the big deal with Silicon Valley, you might wonder? Well, picture Silicon Valley as the main capital of the United States instead of Washington, D.C. Situated in the San Francisco Bay Area of California, Silicon Valley is a global hub for technology and innovation. Its connection to the technocratic concept arises from its emphasis on cutting-edge technology and its impact on various aspects of our daily lives. Leading companies like Google, Facebook, and Amazon are often seen as supporters of this notion because they create innovative and powerful technologies, advocating for using data to make decisions.
Sure. Well, a lot of the big Silicon Valley names today wouldn't exist without the involvement of the CIA or NQTEL, the CIA's venture capital arm. or in the case of, Facebook, you have sort of a DARPA connection there. So a lot of these, Silicon Valley companies, we were sort of sold this narrative, oh, it's just these guys in their garage and look at their brilliant startup. What you're going to find, In-Q-Tel or connections to powerful people and deal making and whatnot. But, in a lot of the bigger names, you find the national security state there. Really from the off, and it has sort of, that relationship has been relatively, continuous from their founding onward. So,
Silicon Valley companies are recognized for their extensive data collection and surveillance capabilities. Some suggest that the deep state might exploit these capabilities for intelligence gathering and civilian monitoring, potentially violating personal rights. Tech firms in Silicon Valley frequently team up with government agencies on diverse projects, including defense contracts, data analysis, and cybersecurity. Concerns arise about the potential impact of these collaborations on government policies. Companies like Google, Facebook, and Amazon possess the ability to share information and shape how the public sees significant subjects like politics through communication platforms. This control over information raises worries about the potential unfairness and restrictions on speech, prompting thoughts about Silicon Valley's role in shaping public knowledge. Certain Silicon Valley enterprises attempt to modify laws and regulations relevant to their operations by engaging in lobbying. This capacity to influence policymaking prompts discussions about the influence these large tech companies have on government decisions. It's important to consider that connections between Silicon Valley, technocracy, and the deep state can lead to various interpretations. While some view collaboration between tech leaders and government bodies as vital for progress, others see it as a potential source of unchecked power and influence. However, this matter remains an ongoing debate. All of these ideas converge on the concepts of the deep state and technocracy. People may wonder how one entity can monitor an entire population. The answer is technology, which offers ways to surveil everyone through cooperative methods. This is especially relevant today, with the widespread promotion of social media, data-driven content, and cyberspace.
The military intelligence industrial complex, that particular group is looking as early as the Vietnam War of using what later becomes the internet, but technology as a way to surveil the population for the purpose of dissident hunting, like what we now see as the war on domestic terror, the Phoenix program, and was used extensive databases and the technology of the time as a tool to basically launch a war of domestic terror within Vietnam, which resulted in the murder of a lot of civilians and alleged dissidents and all of this stuff.
Another term to keep in mind is transhumanism. Transhumanism is a belief and a movement that aims to enhance and improve human abilities using advanced technologies like biotechnology, nanotechnology, and artificial intelligence. This involves using these technologies to overcome human mental and physical limits. The purpose of transhumanism is to boost human intelligence, lifespan, and overall health, which could lead to a new phase of human development.
Merging man with machine and using these technologies to manipulate genes and all of that. So, it's definitely evolved since then. But if you look at the people who financed not race science, you have the Rockefeller Foundation. Mm-hmm. And who's a big financer of transhumanism today? The Rockefeller Foundation.
Wow. Some individuals believe that transhumanism could serve as a catalyst for the fourth industrial revolution by advocating for advanced technologies that improve human abilities. Silicon Valley aligns with the concept of a technocratic system, as it believes that innovative and intelligent individuals, along with data utilization, can address significant societal issues. This alignment corresponds with the principles of transhumanism.
Conservatives like me dismissed theories from the left about JFK's assassination as just left-wing conspiracy theories. The left looks as if they were quite justified in not trusting the intelligence services.
Looking back at history, the JFK assassination emerges as a pivotal moment. Recently, there has been speculation that the deep state might have played a role in this unlawful event, with suggestions that the government concealed the true story, leading us to question who was truly in charge. Certainly, the deep state, also known as the national security state, is not a recent development. Its existence spans across civilizations, finding ways to maintain authority. In early 2023, the Biden administration released thousands of documents related to the assassination of John F. Kennedy on November 22, 1963. Approximately 60 years have passed since the assassination occurred, yet only partial truths have been disclosed. 6 decades is a substantial time for someone to keep a secret. What could they be concealing? These documents were intended to be released in 2017 during the Trump administration, but this did not materialize.
According to reporting at the time, releasing the full trove of documents would be, quote, infuriating to people at the CIA and elsewhere who are determined to keep at least some of the information secret.
So, does the CIA want to keep information about JFK's assassination hidden? If so, why? This leads us to a conversation that has been postponed for too long. Could the CIA have been involved in JFK's death?
We spoke to someone who had access to these still hidden CIA documents, a person who was deeply familiar with what they contain. We asked this person directly, did the CIA have a hand in the murder of John F. Kennedy, an American president? And here's the reply we received verbatim, quote, the answer is yes. I believe they were involved. It's a whole different country from what we thought it was. It's all fake.
That's quite troubling. Tucker Carlson asserts that this source comes from an actual CIA member. If this is verified in the future, it will only serve to confirm that the US government is truly acting against its own citizens.
This is not a, quote, conspiracy theorist that we spoke to. Not even close. This is someone with direct knowledge of the information that once again is being withheld from the American public. And the answer we received was unequivocal. Yes, the CIA was involved in the assassination of the president.
However, we must keep in mind that this is an unknown source. So yes, Tucker Carlson raised some great points, like how JFK's assassination was killed immediately after, or the term conspiracy theory being used to label the opposing argument. But it is still unproven. Although the potential ties between the deep state and government agencies in the assassination are not yet made clear, we can tell by the related events that the government has a lot of secrets they're not willing to disclose with the people. Clearly, the president and other members of their administration aren't completely in control of running this country. It is not totally impossible that they're unaware of what's progressing within the CIA or federal authorities. If we're going to go down the rabbit hole of citing the CIA's and federal authorities' shady work, we can conclude that these agencies haven't always been working for the betterment of the people.
FBI and CIA, since FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover dedicated 85% of its illegal covert intelligence resources toward attacking left groups like the NAACP, Vietnam protesters, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the Black Panther Party, Puerto Rican independence movements, and the American Indian Movement.
Transhumanism is a key driver of this supposed fourth industrial revolution. You see a lot of these people in Silicon Valley favoring what is obviously a technocratic system, where there's a class of technocrats who get to decide everything and you just have to live with it, and they're just telling you it's for the greater good.
Let's examine a more modern individual, Sam Bankman-Fried. This person achieved success very quickly, which makes us wonder if he used crafty methods to get there.
A few months ago, you had Sam Bankman-Fried basically promoting the idea that FTX would become what he called the Everything app. This is a buzzword I pay a lot of attention to these days, because the Everything app is invariably going to be the app that is tied to your digital ID, to your central bank digital currency, your social media, basically.
Sam Bankman-Fried was an American entrepreneur, investor, and alleged fraudster. He was renowned for funding the cryptocurrency exchange platform FTX, and his connections with the Alameda research firm. In late 2022, both companies experienced a high-profile collapse, resulting in bankruptcy.
Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX is involved in, weird financial stuff with Ukraine, with the Democratic Party, and what have you. How powerful is this group really, and what are they trying to accomplish?
Before the bankruptcy, Bankman-Fried was ranked as the 41st richest American in the Forbes 400, and the 60th richest person in the world by the world's billionaires. His net worth was approximately $26 billion. He was a very wealthy man. And as we know in America, money equals power. Bankman-Fried was arrested on December 12, 2022 on 8 criminal charges, which include wire fraud, commodities fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, and campaign finance law violations. If convicted, he could face up to 115 years in prison. In February 2023, an additional 4 charges against Bankman-Fried were announced. Later, he was released on a $250 bond under the condition that he resides at his parents' home in California. On July 27, 2023, a campaign finance charge was dropped, but he still faces wire and security fraud charges. Sounds like he's going to be just fine. Sam Bankman-Fried might just have enough connections to keep himself outside of jail. And if the patterns are anything to reflect on, Bankman-Fried might walk free with his charges dropped.
Actually, William McCaskill, before the collapse of FTX, described Sam Bankman-Fried as having. You have one of the other big effective altruist organizations that has lots of money behind it, Open Philanthropy, be the group that finances Event 201 and then gives loads of money to the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security and a lot of these other biosecurity organizations that have ties to the 2001 anthrax attacks and Dark Winter in June 2001. So Open Philanthropy also actively very, very much donating to these causes. And the big name behind Open Philanthropy, that's also one of the big names in effective altruism, aside from Sam Bankman-Fried, is Dustin Moskovitz, who's a Facebook co-founder with Mark Zuckerberg. So you start to sort of see this network there.
As we catch a glimpse of the people Sam Bankman-Fried associated with, we find hints that he might have influenced government decisions.
The book, there's acts like this, scandals like this that have broken, really throughout American history in different administrations with powerful political connections, and they've been covered up pretty systematically. Well, I first got interested in it because there was an obvious attempt to cover it up by the mainstream media and, of course, the government itself.
The story takes a darker turn when the name of an infamous person is mentioned in the controversial conversation. Jeffrey Epstein, a man of scandal and mystery, was suspected of having internal ties to intelligence agencies and influential figures. If you haven't heard of Jeffrey Epstein, he was a sex offender and trafficker who died under mysterious circumstances before he could be prosecuted. Born on January 20th, 1953 in New York City, New York, Jeffrey Epstein was raised in an average working-class family with his parents and younger brother. Starting his career as an educator in 1974, Jeffrey Epstein was hired to teach mathematics and physics at the Dalton School on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, despite lacking a teaching degree. The headmaster at the time, Donald Barr, was known for making questionable recruitment choices. Though it is unclear if Donald Barr played a role in hiring Epstein, still, it shows how unconventional the school system was during this time. During his time at the Dalton School, Epstein allegedly started flirting with minor female students and showed inappropriate behavior towards them. He was even reported showing up at student drinking parties. Epstein was soon dismissed from the school for poor performances, whatever that means, and he started a new career in the banking and finance sector. He worked at Bear Stearns for a few years before starting his own firm. Epstein even developed a predatory social circle where he procured many women and minors, whom he and his associates sexually abused. In 2005, Palm Beach, Florida police started investigating Jeffrey Epstein after parents of a 14-year-old female reported him for sexually abusing their daughter. In 2008, Jeffrey Epstein pleaded guilty and was convicted by a Florida state court of procuring a child for prostitution and of soliciting a prostitute. He was incarcerated for little more than a year, but with work release, which is a program in the prison system that allows prisoners to leave their place of imprisonment to work at their place of employment. Once their shift is over, they return to prison. This work release program might sound a little inconvenient because inmates are supposed to be serving their time. However, this program's goal is to help inmates transition back into the real world. It's supposed to help them maintain employment, pay off court-ordered fines, support their families, and maybe even pay child support. It's a conventional rehabilitation program when used on the right people, of course.
This come out where you have Alex Acosta reported to saying that he went light on Epstein when he was, a U.S. attorney in Florida because he was told that Epstein had belonged to intelligence and was above his pay grade and whatnot. What that meant, right? Because if you say belonged to intelligence, that could mean he was an asset, he was on the payroll, he was an agent, and does that mean one intelligence agency or multiple intelligence agencies? What exactly was the nature of that involvement? Because if you're talking about someone who's under fire for the sex trafficking of minors and there's an intelligence connection, that means there's a state connection, like a government connection, sex trafficking of minors as well. So he saw this behavior somewhere else before he engaged in it himself. And these institutions and entities that I refer to there were also tied to intelligence agencies.
It is reported that Epstein was only convicted of these 2 crimes due to a controversial plea deal. Federal officials identified 36 girls, some as young as 14 years old, who were allegedly sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein. It seems like this man had some connections that helped keep him out of the system. One of them being the Clintons.
The attorneys involved in prosecuting that case, their main narrative was that Jeffrey Epstein was the mastermind, and Stephen Hoffenberg confirmed this in his testimony to the grand jury. But then in a few months' time, Jeffrey Epstein's name is dropped from the case. And in 1993, Jeffrey Epstein is, instead of in prison like Steve Hoffenberg is, he's visiting the White House. Jeffrey Epstein, mastermind of this massive Ponzi scheme there. And then you have a banker that's affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell in the Palm Beach area, who's very much established in the offshore financial system of the Caribbean. So, you put all of that together, it seems very likely that there was some sort of funny money there. And did it play a role in Vince Foster's death? I don't really know. It's very interesting that you would have one of the earliest involvements of Jeffrey Epstein with the Clintons and all these illegal fundraisers for the Clintons. And prior to that, constructing this giant Ponzi scheme, he helps the Clintons set up the Clinton Foundation.
On July 6, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested again on federal charges for sex trafficking of minors in Florida and New York. Epstein was found dead in his jail cell on August 10, 2019. His death was ruled a suicide by hanging, though Epstein's lawyers have disputed the ruling due to doubtfulness. A question emerges over the actual cause of Epstein's death, leading to many controversial theories. They think Epstein's death may have been staged to prevent him from disclosing classified information. Either way, there are a lot of theories surrounding his death. Because of Epstein's death, there's really no way to prosecute him. So all of his criminal charges were dismissed on August 29, 2019. The fate of these 3 men is different, but their paths intersect at the US government. How did it come to be? No one can say for sure. But the logic behind their criminal records, lives, wealth, and mysterious deaths is worth questioning and theorizing. Of course, we have to explore the idea of effective altruism. We wonder, why do some people want to get super rich and have a lot of power? They might want to be in a special group that can control what happens in society.
There's a bunch of weird stuff going on with this particular network and money. And if you look at some of the funds that the Center for Effective Altruism manages, there's the guys at the top of that organization. There's maybe like 4 or 5 of them, and they have like different effective altruist groups themselves, the biggest one being the Center for Effective Altruism.
Effective altruism is a philosophy centered around making a positive impact on the world by directing one's efforts and resources toward actions that lead to the better benefit of others. The idea here is to create the biggest and longest-lasting difference. However, there is a flaw to every plan. The action of wanting to control many things in society can make us wonder how it might affect government functions. Getting a lot of money and having control in society isn't a combination that comes easily. We can't help but think about secret plans between the government and powerful groups like the Mafia. When people get a lot of money, they can become really powerful and might change how the government works. This makes us worry if their actions remain ethical, or if they are only here to seize power and wealth.
They're just making grants to each other in a circular fashion. So, one makes a $1 million grant to this group, and then that one makes a, $500,000 or $500,000 grants to the next one, and so on. And it's all just changing hands between these same groups. And to me, that looks like money laundering, but what do I know?
The World Economic Forum becomes a big voice for making things better, but hidden under its nice image, there's a tricky plan to have power and control. We look closely at how it works and find out that it cleverly uses teamwork between businesses and governments to change how the world works.
Basically, the public-private partnership, stakeholder capitalism is also the term that gets used for that a lot, which is having stakeholder. It's either having stake not just in your private sector company, but also in the public sector and with what they call civil society, which tend to be NGOs.
The World Economic Forum tries to look like it's helping people, but some think it's using that to control us. It talks about working together with businesses and governments, But some say it's really not about helping. Instead, it might be trying to make decisions that affect our lives without us knowing. This makes us wonder if we can trust what they say they're doing. To recap, all of the presented conversations so far are theorized discussions. They are not yet proven or dismissed. However, it does prove one thing, and that is, the government is not completely honest with us, whether or not there's influence from the Mafia and deep state controlling them, because there will always be a hidden power behind the scenes. Whether it's technocracy, deep state, national security state, Silicon Valley, transhumanism, effective altruism, or the World Economic Forum, they all describe the current state of the world. It is important to be equipped with this knowledge. As a civilian, you should be able to seek transparency within your government. If you feel like your government is being controlled by the Mafia, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell so we can notify you when your government is being overtaken.